Produced in high definition by Fox 50. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight, a serial robber, a drive-by shooter, and a teenager gunned down in North Raleigh. NC Wanted in high definition starts now.
Good evening, I'm Gerald Owens. Welcome to NC Wanted. Tonight we target violent crimes that involve guns, and we take on the sensitive subject of gun control. It's a hot-button issue for politicians on both sides of the aisle. The very notion of gun control can energize a politician's support base and push more voters to the polls. But tonight we want to go beyond the political cliches and separate myth from reality. Here in our great state of North Carolina, we have the dubious distinction of being one of the country's top source states in the illegal gun trade. Out of all 50 states, we rank number 7. But before we step through the minefield of gun control, we begin with some recent shootings in our area that have left investigators with few leads and a frustrating lack of closure. In recent months, authorities in Raleigh and Cary believe one man is behind a series of at least 5 brutal armed robberies at area convenience stores. This serial robber has cut an erratic swath through the area. In some cases, the gunman walked in, shot the clerk, and left without taking any money. Through video surveillance and eyewitness accounts, he appears to be a black man in his late 20s to early 30s. He wears the same outfit every time: a navy blue jacket with gray piping, a black baseball cap, black gloves, dark pants, and white tennis shoes. One clerk said he may be driving a dark-colored SUV. Now, this man is armed and dangerous and may strike again at any time. If you know anything about the Wake County serial robber, call us right now at 1-866-43-WANTED or log on to our website at ncwanted.com. You don't have to reveal your identity. Tonight, Durham police are targeting a 2-square-mile area in East Durham. They call it Operation Bullseye Target Area. It represents only 2% of the population, but this area accounts for the most calls for shots fired in the city. Here's one reason for the crackdown. Tonight, a gunman is behind bars in Durham County. He's 28-year-old Jasmine Javon Catfish Rogers, a violent fugitive who was just captured by Durham police. The arrest went down in a shootout at the Carolina Duke Motor Inn off Guest Road in Durham. Authorities say Rogers came out of his room with guns blazing. He fired directly at the officers, then tried to run. But he slipped and fell, and that's when police grabbed him. This is great news because Rogers may be connected to at least 4 shootings in our area, including the drive-by shooting that killed 15-year-old Quincy Bowens, a teenager who died a hero as he saved his 2-year-old niece.
He grabbed my baby, you know what I'm saying? She was the last one to come in. He pushed her in the door, and he ended up getting shot.
They also think Jasmine Rogers may be linked to more shootings. One happened at a public housing complex in Durham, another at a Texaco gas station off Maple Avenue in Burlington. Investigators are also looking into whether Rogers was involved in yet another drive-by shooting in Durham. On July 2nd, around 6:45 p.m., Darius McLean and his girlfriend are driving through Durham. While sitting at a stoplight at the intersection of Cheek Road and Midland Terrace, a dark gray Chevy SUV pulls up to the left side of their car. A few moments later, someone in the back seat opens fire. One bullet catches Darius in the waist and travels up to his chest. Investigators believe Darius is the shooter's intended victim. They also think this incident is connected to the shooting at the Black Tie nightclub in Raleigh, when Tyrone Covington, also known as Man, was shot and killed. Authorities won't release specifics on the firearm, but they say the shooter used a small handgun. Court records show that Jasmine Rogers has a long rap sheet and may be responsible for a spree of violent crimes in our area. If you have any information on the criminal activities of Jasmine Javon Catfish Rogers, call our hotline toll-free at 1-866-43-WANTED or log on to ncwanted.com and click on Report a Tip. You don't have to reveal your identity. Also in Orange County, yet another shooting this week. Hillsborough police are looking for 18-year-old Julius Evans and 21-year-old Jamal Scarborough. They're wanted for shooting a man as he left Lunsford's Red and White grocery store on US 70. They were last seen in an older model light blue Honda Accord. If you know the whereabouts of Julius Evans or Jamal Scarborough, call our hotline right now at 1-866-43-WANTED or log on to our website at ncwanted.com. Tonight, we're sad to report the death of an 8-year-old boy in Goldsboro. He was killed by gunfire, and it's quite possible the shooting was an accident. Too often, children get their hands on guns inside their own homes. Every 9 days, a North Carolina child is fatally shot. That's why the safe storage law is on the books and makes the gun owner liable if he or she fails to lock their weapons and keep them away from children in the home.
Coming up, he's the student from Millbrook High, killed in a drive-by shooting in his peaceful North Raleigh neighborhood. The unsolved murder of 16-year-old Usama Husein. Tonight's NC Mystery is next.
Welcome back to NC Wanted. Tonight we're devoting our entire show to crimes involving guns and the sensitive subject of gun control. In tonight's NC Mystery, we follow the story of the unsolved murder of Usama Husein, a 16-year-old boy living in North Raleigh. He had the comfort of family wealth, a peaceful neighborhood, and protective older brothers who loved him.
It was basically a drive-by shooting.
On April 14th of 2000, Usama Husein is shot to death in his own front yard. He is 3 months shy of his 17th birthday.
This was the beginning of his life. You know, at age 16, it's just a fresh light bulb that's just been turned on.
I actually woke up to my older brother screaming on the answering machine downstairs. So as soon as I heard that, I picked up the phone, called him, and he says, hurry home, Usama's dead.
7 years after his brutal murder, friends and family are left with only memories and unanswered questions. Why would someone kill him?
He was a very smart, very funny, very easy to get along with type of guy that everyone liked to be around, and the ladies liked him too. I mean, that's, you know, a 16-year-old, that's the kind of things we were into.
At the time of his death, Usama likes to hang out with friends and play sports. He studies hard, working toward a successful future.
You know, he always wanted to be a businessman. My dad has always been a businessman.
The three Husein boys grow up in an upper-class neighborhood in North Raleigh.
Their family's neighborhood is a very upscale neighborhood, extremely peaceful place to live and to hang out.
Law enforcement rarely gets calls from their peaceful neighborhood, so Usama's murder comes as a shock.
It was extremely uncommon to have this type of violent crime happen in that area.
We always had, you know, one house where we'd go play basketball one day, or we'd play football right in the cul-de-sac and up and down the street.
He seemed like your typical kid, but in August of 1999, Usama gets involved in not-so-typical activity.
I guess it was another high school party that he was at. There was a few students who were ganging up on him, and Usama had a lot of friends with him, and I guess it started out that way.
One incident brings serious criminal charges: simple assault, injury to personal property, and first-degree burglary.
From what I understand, there was a lot of people at that house, and there was a big fight. I guess Usama just stood out that night.
So the teenager in a peaceful North Raleigh neighborhood survived some violent times, but his past is about to be his downfall. April 14th, 2000 is the last day of school before spring break. Usama and his friend make their annual plans for the beach.
Usama and two of his friends left school early that day, and basically we're playing hooky, if you will.
Usama is dropped off at home to pack up his belongings. His friend plans to pick him up later that night, and together they'll head to the beach. But Usama never makes the trip. Around 11 o'clock that night, he stands near the end of his driveway talking on his cell phone. A vehicle pulls into the cul-de-sac and turns off the lights. The car approaches Usama when someone inside starts shooting. Usama is hit once in the left arm. He runs, then is shot 3 more times with deadly accuracy. A final shot pierces his chest. Mortally wounded, Usama collapses in a neighbor's ditch. No one from his family is home at the time.
Mr. and Mrs. Husein were away from the home at a dinner engagement, and Usama's older siblings were also away from the home when this occurred.
When they arrive home, Usama's parents see that he's not there. They think he's with his friends as planned, having some fun and driving to the beach. As morning comes, a neighbor discovers his lifeless body.
That morning, on Saturday morning, and when she went to retrieve her paper, is when she observed the victim, Usama, laying partially in the edge of her driveway.
Saturday, April 15th, several law enforcement agencies arrive to process the scene. Investigators soon have possible leads. The night before, Usama's friend Adam Morales was supposed to pick him up at the end of the driveway.
And then talking with this particular friend that was to be the driver, he explained to us that that was their plans, that he was to pick him up that night, and they were to travel together as buddies to the beach. The friend did return that night as planned, and he could not get anyone to the door after ringing the doorbell, and actually tried to call Usama on his phone.
Investigators also discovered that at the time of the shooting, a party was going on right next door.
Some of the teenagers that smoked, and these parents didn't allow the smoking in the home, so some of them were outside in the driveway smoking, in the garage area smoking. The ones that we did talk with about this incident were able to tell us what they saw and heard that night.
The party provides 20 to 30 potential witnesses, and at the time, investigators are confident their accounts will lead to the shooter.
He was involved in some activities that were just uncommon for 16-year-old teenagers.
The night of his murder, Usama makes plans to ride with a friend to Myrtle Beach for spring break.
The plan was, Friday night, we kind of just take it easy and, not do much. And then Saturday morning, get ready to go down there.
During the investigation, police learn of a party the night of the shooting. People are outside smoking when it happens and could be eyewitnesses, but their accounts of the evening are little help.
And they basically described the dark-colored car with lights out and heard what they described as fireworks and popping, three or four pops coming from the car, and then speeding out of the cul-de-sac and leaving the area.
The shooting happens just before midnight. It's raining, making it difficult for witnesses to describe the vehicle or the shooter.
It was raining that night, and it was dark. A lot of cars in the cul-de-sac. Blocks a lot of the viewing. My parents arrived 12:15, and they pretty much drove right past him, Usama, not knowing that he was down in the ditch.
And when they leave the party that night, many leave the area for their spring break vacations.
We were fortunate enough to find some of them. I don't think we have ever talked to every kid that was at that party.
But investigators are left with one strong piece of evidence. While processing the scene, they determined a specific type of weapon was used to kill Usama. The agents also discovered at least 5 students at Usama's high school had this type of rifle.
It's not an everyday pistol or shotgun that you would commonly see. This is a military type assault rifle. It was a very alarming thing to be able to find these types of weapons in the hands of young adults.
Investigators begin to rule out possible motives. When he was killed, Usama was wearing jewelry and carrying money, but nothing was taken from him. This leads police to believe Usama's murder was planned.
We feel certain that the motive behind this was more or less a revenge or retaliation type homicide.
Friends and family feel Usama's pending charges are likely the reason behind his death.
We do believe that this is revenge from a prior fight that had happened within the year before his murder.
It definitely wasn't just a random act of violence. I mean, it was somebody with a grudge who had a reason in their mind to do this.
Today, the 7-year anniversary of Usama's murder has come and gone. The family still offers a $50,000 reward. hoping someone will have the courage to come forward.
We've brought it from $20,000 to $50,000 now, and that's for the arrest and conviction for the person responsible. I'm very confident that it'll be solved.
Since Usama's death, the family has coped with the loss of one child by welcoming another child into the world.
Usama passed away on April 15th of 2000, and my younger brother, his name is Abdullah, was born March 15th of 2001. Now Abdullah's 6, and it's taking him to school or doing these activities with them and keeping busy with them. For my parents especially, it helps out a lot.
Watching Abdullah grow up, family and friends wonder what type of man Usama would be today.
I think he'd be a very successful person today.
He was raised in a very well-to-do home, educated home, had a lot to look forward to in the future.
The sky was the limit. He could have made anything out of his life that he wanted to.
He's just a typical teenager.
This was a senseless act against a young man with his whole life ahead of him. If you have any information about the murder of Usama Husein, call our hotline toll-free at 1-866-43-WANTED or go to ncwanted.com and click on Report a Tip. You can remain anonymous. To this day, investigators won't reveal the make and model of the firearm used to kill Usama Husein, but they acknowledge it was some type of assault rifle. But in the scheme of things, does the type of gun or rifle really matter? Does it make us safer to eliminate certain types of firearms? Proponents of tougher gun control argue that all assault weapons should be banned. Some go so far as to call for a ban on all guns, period. But is that realistic? Do we need more gun laws? Do we need to instill harsh measures, such as regular searches of vehicles and homes in the hot crime areas? We went straight to the experts who have to enforce our gun laws at the state and federal levels. What we discovered was eye-opening. It's called the Iron Pipeline, the corridor of I-95 that runs through North Carolina. But set your sights on New York City, and the Iron Pipeline strikes a dead end. We learned that New York's gun ban has meant open season for the black market. 80% of guns used in crimes in New York City come from other states, and a major source is North Carolina.
Easy access to these interstates has not helped one bit in deterring illegal firearms being trafficked to other states.
We sat down recently with Earl Woodham, a federal agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. What other factors are involved in our state being such a highly ranked source state?
Well, the same factors that would be involved with all other states, and that is, number one is greed. There's money to be made.
Does this mean North Carolina should ban all guns? They tried that in Australia. According to a recent article in the Sydney Morning Herald, a nationwide $500 million buyback has had no effect on the murder rate.
We've tried it with alcohol once and it didn't work. I don't know why in the world anyone would think it would work with firearms.
Should North Carolina make special laws that target a certain type of firearm, such as the assault rifle?
Whether you call it an assault weapon, whether you call it a high-end bolt-action hunting rifle, or whether you call it a very high-end collector's item handgun, every firearm has the potential of being a collector's item one minute and an instrument of death the next.
So what can be done to stop the trafficking of illegal guns? Bottom line, criminals have figured out how to work around our laws. First, the so-called gun show loophole.
When someone goes to a gun show and sets up a booth and sells their, what they call their private collection, 20, 30, 50 guns, their private collection, they are not bound by the federal law because they don't have a federal firearms license.
Second, the criminal act of the straw purchase.
Straw purchasers are not the smartest people on the face of the earth. Sometimes they walk in there and they bring their convicted felon with them. And their convicted felon picks out the firearm and then walks away. The straw purchaser will then, in fact, pay for it, fill out the paperwork, walk out the door and hand it to them.
Third, the unbalanced restrictions on law-abiding licensed firearm dealers versus unlicensed individuals.
If you have a license, you have to follow the law. If you don't have a license, there is no law that applies to you that requires you to conduct a background check on a potential purchaser.
Fourth, the honor system when it comes to applications filled out by the mentally ill.
When an individual goes into a licensed dealer shop to buy a gun, one of the questions is, have you ever been adjudicated as a mental defect by a court of record?
What's the likelihood that they're going to say, yes, I am mentally ill?
Well, logic dictates that someone mentally ill is not going to tell the truth.
And fifth, the limitations on gun tracing. Individual states, how do they track guns then?
The way a firearm is traced,
Yeah.
the state cannot trace the firearm.
And that can be frustrating, I know, from a law enforcement agency's perspective.
It can be, because if I know that this gun was used in a homicide, and I've got the gun, and I've got the killer, and I've got the dead body, and I want to know how that gun got there, but somewhere along the trace, it's broken by a burglary of a residence, it's over. There's no way to trace it.
Note to members of the North Carolina General Assembly, ask yourselves if loopholes that allow criminals to access guns make sense. We want to know what you think about gun control and gun laws. After tonight's show, send us an email to ncwanted@ncwanted.com. Tell us what you think about the subject of gun control. Early next week, we'll compile your responses and post them on our homepage. In a moment, we'll recap tonight's cases and tell you what we're working on for next week. Stay with us. Welcome back to NC Wanted. Time now to recap tonight's cases. First, authorities in Raleigh and Cary believe one man is behind at least 5 brutal armed robberies at Wake County convenience stores. In some cases, the gunman walked in, shot the clerk, and left without taking any money. He appears to be a black man in his late 20s to early 30s. He wears the same outfit every time, a navy blue jacket with gray piping, a black baseball cap, black gloves, dark pants, and white tennis shoes. Next, investigators arrested 28-year-old Jasmine Javon Catfish Rogers of Durham. They say Rogers is linked to at least 4 shootings, one that killed 15-year-old Quincy Bowens of Chapel Hill. They also believe Rogers could be linked to 3 other shootings, including a fatal drive-by that happened July 2nd at the intersection of Cheek Road and Midland Terrace in Durham. Investigators believe Darius McLean was the target and that the incident is connected to another shooting at the Black Tie nightclub in Raleigh on June 25th. And finally, the unsolved murder of Usama Husein, a bright 16-year-old living in North Raleigh. He was gunned down in front of his own home. His body lay in a ditch as his parents unknowingly drove right past him. Authorities believe the killers may have known Usama, and the shooting was in retaliation. If you have any information about tonight's cases, call us right now at 1-866-43-WANTED or go to our website at ncwanted.com and click on Report a Tip. You don't have to reveal your identity. Now, next week, join us as we change things up a bit. We're tracking the stories of victims who may still be alive. They're considered missing persons. They're people from all walks of life. And to this day, their cases remain unsolved. Remember, together we can fight to protect the quality of life we hold dear in North Carolina. I'm Gerald Owens. Have a good night.